right, so we are live, and I thought I would go live after now that the hurricane has visited and gone from uh, my area of the world here in the Carolinas, and I would hope that the people in Florida are able to rebuild their lives and their property and start over. Um, your life can be changed in an instant, and Hurricane Ian was immediate proof of that. So be grateful for what you have, right? But I thought we would talk a little bit about Cobra Kai in season 5, right? I mean, the fact is that season 5 was, I thought, a lot more comedic among the other seasons, and with all the um, back and forth going on and the different narratives that were going on with Miguel going to Mexico and Johnny and Robbie going to find him, and then Robbie finding out that they were going to find Miguel, and then Miguel finding Hector, and so on. And then you come back to the valley, and in the meantime, you have um, Sam, Moon, and Yasmin doing their thing, and Sam trying to figure out what's best for her. And then you have Dimitri and Hawk, and the whole thing with Kenny and Anthony continuing from season 4, which as it got started by Anthony, and he tried to apologize, and Kenny really didn't take to that, and kind of became the aggressor in that. But I found again that the comedy really kind of outweighed all of that. I mean, I thought that the scenes with Chosen and Mike Barnes in the furniture store were absolutely hilarious. And the scene with Anoush and Louie having a fight because Anoush went on a date with Vanessa. Um, and then, last but not least, there was the scene in the limo with Johnny um, and Chosen and Daniel all singing the Eye of the Tiger, right? And they're drunk as you know what, and they're having a blast. Then they find out, of course, that Mike Barnes has commandeered the limo, and when they finally get pulled over and stopped, and they find out that he's the one driving, and that he's really angry at Daniel because of what happened with his place of business being destroyed. And Daniel explains to him that he suspects that Terry Silver is behind the entire thing, and that Daniel will help him in any way possible, right? Um, and it was enjoyable, really, to see Barnes in that light in season 5, given what we saw in Karate Kid 3, where he was this um, basically hired mercenary who was brought in for one reason, and that was to defeat Daniel and help Silver take over the valley with their dojos. And it didn't end up that way in 1985 with Silver, Kreese, and Barnes. And some 35 odd years later, we have Silver trying to replicate that idea. Kreese is out of the way in prison, so Silver thinks he can do pretty much whatever he wants. And but Barnes was much more mellow and much more decent person in season 5, and we did see that side of him where he blamed Daniel, but he realized in the end that Daniel was right, that Terry Silver was behind everything that ever went wrong in their lives at this point. And he had burned down Barnes's place of business. He had beaten Daniel up and harassed him. He had lured Johnny to the old Cobra Kai dojo in season 4 and attacked him when he got there. And then he also managed to ruin for Amanda the opportunity to get onto the board of the charity that they were having the fundraiser for and the auction for at Terry's house. But again, with the comedy part of this, that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen when Anush decided he wasn't going to go to the club with Daniel and Johnny and Chosen because he didn't want to be around Johnny, yet he ends up getting punched out anyway because Louis is not happy about his date with Vanessa, right? And then a couple minutes later, they're all cool and they're discussing it and, they're okay with each other. And then in the furniture store, you have Daniel talking to Mike Barnes and not knowing what the circumstances were. Chosen comes in and, goes on the attack. And then Daniel explains to him, no, everything is fine. He's actually willing to listen and help us in dealing with Silver. And yet, at the end of that scene, we have Chosen buying a very expensive piece of furniture from Barnes and, making a whole, comedy segment out of it, which was, again, from violence to hilarious, right? And last but not least in that, you have the setup with the incident in Mexico where Robbie is and Johnny are in this contest that they're pretty much gambling on because they need money, to get out of Mexico and to get the car fixed and what have you. And Robbie cheats basically and ends up winning, and then the other guy goes running off because he got the really bad end of that, right? But so for me, it was more the comedy aspect of the season. Of course, there was plenty of karate, right? It's a show about that, so there was plenty of it. But and the other great thing about it was we got to see Jessica Andrews again with Robin Lively coming back in. I don't know what you all thought of that, but I actually thought it was pretty cool, that they wrote her as Amanda's cousin and wrote it as Jessica having introduced Amanda to Daniel or put her in touch with him as she was moving to California. So we know more about how that came to be, right? With Daniel and Amanda being married and that. But the other thing that I noticed about this season, more than some others, was the fact that Daniel and Johnny actually had a civilized discussion without going from actually having a good time one minute to wanting to kill each other the next minute or have an argument or a pissing contest over who knows what. And actually this time the role was reversed, right? Daniel comes charging into Johnny's apartment and he's drunk and he's just going all over the place, and Johnny knows that and basically tells him to cool it, right? and he says, "Hey, man, what's wrong with you? You reek of booze. You're your shirt's not tucked in. You're all out of sorts here." So Daniel actually sits down and spills his guts. Right. That's a huge role reversal from what we've seen in the past, where um, in season one we got Daniel basically antagonizing Johnny by, among other things, trying to get his rent raised with Zarkarian, right? And then we have the scene where they're driving down the road in Reseda, and they turn into Daniel's old apartment complex, and they reminisce about that in their own ways. And then they go to the bar, and they're having a civilized discussion about Allie and about what happened in West Valley when uh, in those days, and how Daniel had the spaghetti all over his chest because he tried to sneak into Encino Oaks through the kitchen and so forth. That whole thing, and but at the end of that, when Daniel found out that Robbie was Johnny's son, and when Johnny found out that Robbie was Daniel's student, the whole thing went to hell, right? And then in season two, they go out on an unplanned double date, right? Um, they meet at a restaurant and actually enjoy each other's company. And Johnny tells Daniel that he wants Cobra Kai in this day and age to be better than what Kreese did. Um, and Daniel, I think, actually believes him by the time the night is over with. And then the next day, there's the whole um, matter of Daniel going to Johnny's apartment and finding out that Sam is there with Robbie and that they were drinking and so on. And, Daniel doesn't allow Johnny to explain anything. And, the match is lit. We have that explosion where, there's the fight in the apartment, and then, we end that season with the school fight, and then, Daniel and Johnny are at the hospital, not with the perfect ending and not saying anything to one another. Um, and, then in season three, we do start to see, Daniel and Johnny coming together as um, Daniel basically comes to Johnny's rescue when he's trying to get Robbie out of the dojo, and Kreese is there, and Kreese attacks and tries to kill Johnny, right? Daniel comes to his rescue, and then they make the bet that ends up in the tournament in season four, and they agree to train together with their respective students at Miyagi-Do, right? But you see how well that worked because they couldn't agree on anything. They were basically arguing every other 5 seconds about something or the other, philosophically, and each had their own jealousy about what the other was doing with their students. Johnny didn't like that Daniel was getting a bond with Miguel, and Daniel didn't like that Johnny was influencing Samantha. Um, and it all ended up well between the two of them at the end of season four, even though um, Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang lost the bet, and they had to end up um, closing their dojos, or should they? Because we now know that Silver paid off the ref, right? So, in the match with Tori and Sam. So, um, season five was a welcome change to see basically Johnny and Daniel on the same side and staying there and actually getting along and trying to help each other, right? And then we had Tori and Sam bury the hatchet for how long we'll see after season 2, 3, and 4 of Acrimony. And then we also had the moment of between Robbie and Miguel at the end of the supervised fight with between them at the apartment complex, where Robbie apologized to Miguel, if you want to put it that way, and Miguel finally realized that you know, that it was over as far as the fight between them. So I would like to see more about how that develops, and I'm sure we'll get that in season 6. But did you see their reaction when Johnny unceremoniously announced that he and Carmen were having the baby? I thought that was really awesome, right? The fact that they were having a fight and an argument. Now they get that over with, and then Johnny announces that he and Carmen are having a baby, and then Miguel and Robbie both say, well, that's really awesome, that's great, that sort of thing. I thought there would be a little bit more of a ways to go with that, considering how Johnny freely admits to having messed up with Robbie for basically the first 16 years of his life, right? So I thought there might be a little bit more friction there as far as Robbie accepting that, but I think in the end it was great that they seemed to have buried the hatchet on between themselves with him and Miguel. Now, if you think about what you might like to see in season 6, right? One thing that we haven't seen yet is Johnny and Tori, right? We haven't seen them in a scene together since season 2, right? And I think at some point we'll see that, and I'd be interested to see how that comes out. But I think if they go through this tournament, the Sakai Taikai, in season 6, the season will all build towards that. My biggest question is, would they go on location to Okinawa, right? Or would they go back to Hawaii as they did in Karate Kid 2 and use that location on Oahu as the filming location for Okinawa? And the reason I ask that is because with COVID, I'm curious as to whether or not Japan would allow them to come there and film, and what the regulations might be, as opposed to filming on U.S. soil, and being maybe perhaps more free to film in the way they feel is appropriate, and not be as regulated. So I'm wondering about that, and it'll be interesting to see if that actually happens. Now, if they don't go back to Okinawa because the tournament's not held there, I would be interested also to see, would they hold it in South Korea, and would they go on location to South Korea maybe to find out more in the way of Sensei Kim's dojo, right? They might not hold the tournament in South Korea because because they would more likely hold that in Japan. But it might be really interesting to see what Sensei Kim is all about in her own element. We know that she brought her senseis from her dojo in Korea, and she was not really happy to be there because Kreese wasn't there. Kreese is serving time for a trumped up charge thanks to Stingray and Silver. And Him walking out of the joint really surprised me. I didn't think he would walk out, frankly, but I thought there would be an end to Kreese. Of course, I've been thinking that since season 3 at least, and I've been wrong about that every time, so I'm going to stop saying that. But Kreese walked out of jail, and I have um, questions about whether that will even be addressed. The fact that he walked out by stealing the psychiatrist's key card and just walking out of the cell block, while there was a disturbance going on. But so I wonder about those things, and I thought that was, one of the more interesting things about it. I'd always wondered if he would run a dojo in the joint, and it looked like he was doing that, at least in the way of pretty much getting everyone to respect him and kind of follow his lead, right? And of course, there was the fight in the prison, but and he ended up with what we now know is Jello all over his jumpsuit and what have you, and ended up walking out. But and there was, there's something about that just seems Kreese-like for him to walk out of jail. But I don't really think he'll face any consequences. It's the Cobra Kai version of L.A., California, and we all know that in Cobra Kai L.A., there are no police that will really do anything to Daniel or Sam or anybody else. Terry Silver will not spend more than a night in jail. He was arrested in season 5, but I am pretty sure that he will find his way out in season 6, and at least on bail. And then he'll probably jump bail, of course. Terry Silver is a man of resources, right? So you would figure that if the tournament were held in Japan, for example, that he would jump bail and go to Japan. And Kreese would end up there as well to help Sensei Kim run the dojo, since Sensei Kim prefers Kreese to Silver. And what about that, right? What did you all think about that? Sensei Kim was displeased when Silver met her at the airport in his private plane and his presidential-looking limo, right? I mean, that limo did look like the presidential limo. It probably wasn't as fortified as the presidential limo is, but it did look very similar. Now, the plane didn't quite look like Air Force One, right? But anyway, Sensei Kim didn't really care for the fact that Kreese wasn't there. And she made no bones about letting Silver know it. And then when Silver gets beat by Daniel at the end, Sensei Kim seems to have been embarrassed to be there and to witness that, right? So those are some of my thoughts about it. I am curious to see in season 6, how events will unfold. And one of the things I'm curious about is how they'll play it up if for graduation purposes for the kids. Will they graduate them from high school finally, or will they keep them there? Will Julie Pierce show up? I would prefer that Julie Pierce not show up. I have never been quiet on that subject. And the reason I have nothing against Hilary Swank. I think she's a outstanding actress. But the fact is that number one, she is uh, very well known, and she's an award-winning actress, and that's going to increase the price that will have to be paid for her to be there. Now, I don't know if Netflix would drop that kind of coin, to be quite honest, and I'm not going to speculate about whether they would do it. When season three went to Okinawa, uh, when YouTube was commissioning season three, I thought to myself, okay, they have a budget, right? There's money there because they're going to a foreign country to go on location, right? But we all see what happened there, and the fact that YouTube was trying to escape scripted programming, right? So I don't know that in Netflix's case, if they would be willing to drop that kind of coin to get Hilary Swank to appear in a TV show versus a movie, right? That's just my own personal opinion. I know there are others out there, some of which might appear in the comments on this video asking me what I'm thinking, but I just don't know if they would get her. I have nothing against, as I said, I have nothing against Hilary Swank, but I don't think that she really fits. The reason I don't think they fit is because um, Cobra Kai has to do with Daniel, has to do with Johnny, has to do with their kids, their students, and so forth, right? Um, Julie Pierce had nothing to do with that other than she knew Mr. Miyagi, right? And Mr. Miyagi was her sensei, right? That does not necessarily mean that, um, to me, that she should show up in the show, even though she's part of the Miyagi verse, so that could happen, of course. But I don't see how she fits, and I haven't seen anything that would make me think any differently on that. Um, and I'm again probably going to catch hell for saying that. That's fine. Everyone has an opinion, but to me, I just don't think she fits, and I don't. I've seen and heard comments on social media about Colonel Dugan this, Kreese that, blah 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 blah. No, I don't think he belongs either, and I don't really want to see Ned or any of those other alpha whatevers they were in the next Karate Kid. I didn't. I have the movie on DVD, and I've seen it maybe twice in my entire life. I don't. I couldn't tell you other than the fact that Mr. Miyagi and Julie Pierce were in it. What else went on? And I know Colonel Dugan was the evil teacher like Kreese. Otherwise, I couldn't tell you the first 2 minutes of the movie. Um, so I would really rather not mess any of that, mesh any of that with Cobra Kai. It just doesn't make sense to me. Um, the idea that Colonel Dugan was in the military, yeah, okay, a lot of people were, and a lot of people are, but that doesn't necessarily mean that uh, he should be connected to Kreese or Silver, or in any way um, to anything going on with Daniel and Johnny. That's to me that's ridiculous. But I'm going to end this live and wait to see what kind of responses I get. And I will do this again, and I hope to have uh, some of you come in and visit and join in the next time with this. And I've enjoyed doing this, even if it was me by myself. I'm okay doing that. But next time, hopefully, I'll be able to get a few people in to join me, right? It'll be a little bit more fun that way. But for now, I'm sign off, and I wish you all well, and I'll see you the next time.